Okay, first we're going to remove the top piston with a filter screen that's part of the piston. And I will take out the Phillips screws. And I've marked this piston with white paint so it'll be always in the right position, because if you turn this around, this valve will face the wrong way for the machine. Some machines actually have it facing this way, so whichever brew group you take apart, mark where the front is, please. 2 screws, you take this off. And then this is a bit tricky. You have to see these little tabs here. By keeping pressure on it, otherwise they'll pop back. You start with one and then the second one. And then you have to turn this whole gadget over and do number 3 and number 4. And then this piston comes out. Now you can take the filter screen off. Sometimes it's sticky from tar. And then you take your old toothbrush and you use cleaner and you clean this and rinse it. And then you clean this filter screen, both sides, until you can look through against the light and see that all the little holes, you want to have at least 90% of the holes clear. So when you hold it against the light, you see that the holes are open. And when you're finished, put it together right away. And again, very snug is sufficient. You don't want to over tighten any of those little screws. Okay, now we're putting this with the paint forward. That's the proper position. And you snap it back in. You replace the valve. Your 2 screws. Again, snug. Okay. Second part is a little bit trickier, and for that we have to remove this opening where the coffee grounds go before they get compacted, because this is how the brew group works. It pushes the puck. So we start taking this off first. Again, there's a Phillips. And you want to keep your finger on here, because otherwise the little spring might jump and you spend time looking for it later. So you grab it with your needle nose and then you release the little latch that normally locks in the brew group into the chassis, and you gently push this up. Okay, now you see the bottom piston clearly, and the way you get this out, it's a bit tricky. You pry either a flat screwdriver or the needle nose, and you're actually bending this apart so it pops out of a little notch. Then you push the bottom piston, and normally when there's a lot of tar buildup, it can be so much that all the holes are blocked. You can see right here that they're already cleaned, but all these holes should be open. I've seen it where there's a almost 1/8 of an inch membrane that keeps the water from coming through and making coffee. And if it's dirty, you use your coffee cleaner. You scrub this and scrub this until all the holes are open. So, then before you put this together, it's a good idea to use some food-safe grease. You just lubricate the stem. And if you look at these little notches, one is smaller than the other one. The large one goes to the back of the brew group. and the large one fits this little latch. So we put the large opening, and if it's not lined up, you can take your hand and line it up a little bit. And now you have to push hard, and it pops back in. Now the next step is to make sure you hold this scraper, which scrapes leftover coffee when the piston moves back. So you put your left thumb on here, and you line up, and pops back in. So now we want to replace the spring, and if you look close, you see this tiny little hole here, and the spring elbow has to go into this hole, and then it's a bit tricky. You have to keep putting the pressure down and pop this over, and make sure you hold your finger on the screw. Okay. Then the thick end goes to the right side, and then it takes a little coaxing to get this latch back on. And then the little Phillips goes back in. Again, snug without over tightening. So it's all set. Now you know when you have to push in order to get the latch up, in order to get the brew group properly back into the chassis. So if this latch stays down, you always have to push and let go. What I wanted to mention, some brew groups, some of the newer ones, have a different valve on top, and this requires Torx 10, T10 Torx bits. So otherwise the procedure is the same. The number here is the same, facing forward on these particular brew groups. Some of the brew groups actually have the valve pointing to the front, and then you have to mark your brew group to make sure you replace the piston in the proper way. Alright, good luck, and thank you very much for watching.